museum there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm going to call the policy committee meeting of Monday, April 15th, 2024. I'll be darned, it's tax day.
Did you all pay your taxes?
Hope you paid your taxes.
Too. I never do my taxes in April.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I got a new.
I do when I have to.
All right, so if we could please stand for the pledge if you are able. Dr. Young, could you lead us, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
Thank you.
That's right.
Actually having a field trip.
All right, Connor, could you please call roll? Here.
Lori Hayes,
Here.
Jason Graham. Here. Janet Holmes,
Here.
Will McIntosh.
Here.
Drew Mullins,
Here.
Chris Yakubowski, Monica Gary,
Present.
Crystal Venush,
Here.
Marcy Parker,
Here.
Bob Schneider. Here. Deontay Diggs. Present. Emily Young. Present. Dr. Emily Young. James Brown. Catherine Coffey.
Here.
Gerald Childress. Jacob Lane.
Really?
We have
Thank you, Connor.
All right, thank you, Connor. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, yes.
One comment, if you look at attached to your agenda, there is another page because the Federal Transit Administration has advised that we cannot do the Fred Transit amendment to the tip as a modification. It needs to be a full amendment. So we've switched out the version stapled to the version we emailed you after the agenda. So that's the only change. They're almost the same, just the one requires a public comment period. So we have to add the public comment period. So that's the only.
Okay, Crystal, you made the motion. Would you
I'll accept.
accept?
Yep.
Okay, and Jana? Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Please say aye in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Public comment tonight. Do we have anyone that would like to speak to the public? And if so, please stand. You can stand over here so you can be recognized by everyone. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Kwanowski. I'm chair of the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee. I'm here because at the last CTAC meeting, we had a vote on two letters that I was to present to the policy committee. So with your permission, I would like to read those. Dear FAMPO policy committee members, during the public comment opportunity for the FAMPO current river crossing parkway study, the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee discussed the current proposed corridors and discussed concerns that the draft proposed corridors did not include an option that connected directly to Spotsylvania County. Recognizing the CTAC advisory role, the CTAC voted 10-4, including all 4 Spotsylvania representatives voting in support of the following. Request the policy committee to expand the scope of work for the river crossing parkway study to enable consultants to explore at least one river crossing option that extends into Spotsylvania County as an alternative in addition to the current proposed corridors. We respectfully request that the FAMPO policy committee discusses the CTAC's recommendation to expand the scope of the river crossing parkway study, and the policy committee members take action to approve amending the scope. On behalf of the CTAC committee, on behalf of CTAC, I thank you for your commitment to improving the region and listening to the concerned citizens. All right. I believe there's an original, should be in here. All right, second letter. Dear FAMPO policy committee members, Stafford Board of Supervisors, and Fredericksburg City Council members, during the public comment opportunity for the FAMPO River Crossing Parkway Study, the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee discussed the current initial proposed corridors and discussed concerns about potential real estate development projects negatively impacting the corridor alternatives and limiting the options for a suitable river crossing. The CTAC, acting in its advisory role, voted 11-1 with 3 abstentions to request the following. That Stafford County and the city of Fredericksburg take active measures in good faith to make any and all information regarding real estate developments within the study area available, including recorded plats, parcel data, site plans, concept plans for rezonings, conditional zoning, preliminary subdivision plans, special use permits, the date in which the site/concept/rezoning/subdivision plans and special use permits are recorded, and that this information be made available in a timely manner to FAMPO committees, Michael Baker International, and relevant jurisdictions. We respectfully request that FAMPO policy committee members assist in extending these requests to their respective jurisdictions and ensure that the jurisdictions distribute the requested information to the aforementioned parties in a timely manner. On behalf of the CTAC, we are grateful for the assistance the policy committee members provide to its citizens and the committee's actions to improve the region. CTAC is also thankful for the Stafford Board of Supervisors and Fredericksburg City Council consideration of the requested information.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to address the policy committee? Yes, Mr. Watkins.
There's a theme to. Yes, I'm Alan Watkins from 12 England Run Lane. It's not the city of Fredericksburg, but as this committee is well aware and keenly following the major project of Fourth Bridge over the Rappahannock River, I recognize the need and support this endeavor to analyze and determine the best choice for that bridge. I have become increasingly concerned that potential obstacles have sprung up that might either eliminate some of those choices and become literal roadblocks to having numerous potential routes. It was disconcerting to find out that members of this decision-making committee were unaware in January of projects like the Neon Project. Plus, as the consultant has identified, every part of Gordon Shelton Boulevard has owners who have some interest in developing their parcels. Plus, of course, on the north side of the river, there's the Silver Company and Belmont Park LLC, who have forwarded projects that could interfere with those choices. This committee truly values the Fourth River crossing, and I know that it does. It will be up to each jurisdiction, both the city and Stafford County, to work with all the developers transparently to keep a variety of choices on the table, or this whole endeavor might be futile. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none.
Some written comments.
All right, do we have some written comments?
Yes, Madam
Becky?
Chair. Well, the first is from Tessa Cooper. Good morning. I received your information at the recent Community Expo and wanted to reach out regarding some concerns about Fred Bus Stop. I am a case manager with the RACSB and work with clients who rely heavily on the bus system. What I've noticed is the majority of bus stops do not offer any kind of shelter from weather, do not have any place for folks to sit and wait, and are often in unsafe spots on the side of the road where there's no sidewalk accessibility. I've worked with folks who require assistance with ambulation, who find it difficult to utilize the bus system due to the fact they have to wait on grass. As the greater Fredericksburg area continues to grow, I believe that an efficient and well-maintained bus system will become more and more necessity for will be pushed further out of the city due to the growing cost of living. Next comment is from Jennifer Combs. Hi there. I recently filled out your survey requesting information on pedestrians and traffic safety issues in Fredericksburg. I've been in touch with the city for years about several concerns outlined here. Please let me know if you have questions about my survey responses or these additional materials about the problems I've noticed, some potential solutions. Westwood sidewalk proposal. Problem. The intersection of Falling Creek Road and Woodland Road / Keeneland Road is treacherous. Walking or driving coming out of Falling Creek is very dangerous as cars coming from Woodland often don't stop at the stop sign there. Even when simply walking along Woodland Keeneland, there's often two-way traffic and no safe place to walk, particularly with a stroller and a dog. These issues, combined with the high volume of cut-through traffic from Route 1/Callan to Route 3, makes this a pressing issue for our neighborhood. Proposed solution. Recently, the city painted stop bars on the street, which greatly improves visibility of the stop sign for cars coming down Keeneland. Thank you very much. But I think more can be done. Most simply, I would love if this intersection could be an always stop. Currently, cars coming from Woodland, Keeneland, are not required to stop. Beyond this, we would love if the city would consider developing one or more sidewalks and crosswalks in this area. There is currently a sidewalk that ends just past the new development on Dameron Court on one side of the street, and one on the other side of the street, just a little further up Keeneland, Snake Hill. I've drawn a map for how we might extend the sidewalk on one or both sides of the road along the properties of 301 Falling Creek Road and or 131 Woodland with crosswalks across Falling Creek and or Woodland in both cases, the sidewalk could then continue along the property of 142 Woodland beyond Westwood Drive, after which traffic becomes significantly less heavy. I've spoken with the homeowners of all three properties, and all have agreed to engage with the city in discussions about what would be involved in developing sidewalks along their properties. Many thanks in advance for your consideration. Comments received from Al Watkins. Bridge and Parkway growth concern.
This-
Sal?
I don't think he gets two comments.
Well,
I
these
don't-
were received in advance
Sheets in.
from.
That's cheating.
The same time.
Okay. Are they different, Al? Or you won't? Wait, go ahead. Henry.
Are they different comments?
They're related, this is at the very beginning.
I think they're
I
different.
don't think you can give two.
You can't, yeah, you can't really
Okay.
make two comments. But we can,
We're in the pack.
Yeah,
yeah,
whatever.
they're in the packet, so
Okay,
we,
great.
have it.
Okay. Okay. Last one received in advance of the meeting from Jane Leeds. Dear Coley, I'm proposing that the stakeholders and planners should have a one-day experience of using public transit to accomplish their work day. Plus, they should choose a limitation of their choice of the following: mobility, wheelchair or two crutches, low vision and or impaired hearing. While accessing and riding on public transit, VRE bus or Uber Lyft cab, they will not be permitted to use a smartphone to accomplish their access unless they choose to be mobily challenged. The purpose of this one day's experience is to help them become significantly more aware of just how challenging it is for those whom are disabled to get around safely and on time. It would make a great article for the media and show their commitment to having better understanding, not to mention compassion, for those whom are tested every day, not just one. Their current lack of awareness and understanding would be greatly elevated and hopefully generate better planning and infrastructure for those whom do not have the option of driving their own vehicle to accomplish all that they need to do. Being disabled does not excuse one from having to go to work, pay taxes, buying shoes. You have to try them on for fit, and underwear. If one is going to have any quality of life, they want to travel to visit family and friends, attend meetings, go to school, or get a haircut. One of the most important tasks is getting access to health care and necessary pharmaceuticals. It's as simple as that, but those whom can drive take the latter for granted. Oh yes, walking in the central region is rarely a safe option, as there are few contiguous sidewalks. If anyone doubts that statement, have them go shopping at Central Park without their car or transit to different stores. It's an eye-opening experience for those whom can see and or mobile. For those of us whom can't see, and even with a guide dog, it can't safely be done. Plus, you can only shop one side of the street because there are no audible signals to safely cross the multi-lane streets that run in front and the sides of the stores. This is a challenge, or as the Americans with Disability Act might classify, as a reasonable accommodation to help achieve equal access to transportation and services. Disabled Americans are viewed as demanding more of their share, but that is wrong. We only want what others have and are provided for as first in line. The disabled community is mostly classified as a low priority funding option. I've asked this question many times to public officials all over the country. Why are the disabled viewed as unworthy of some rights and access to quality of life? That is 3 minutes, and that ends the public comment.
Right, thank you, Becky. Okay, consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent. Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to item 7, FAMPO Administrator report. Ian.
Thanks, Chairperson. Would it be okay if I did it from here?
Sure.
Just saves time. Thank you. Next slide. So I focused a little bit on the CTB public meeting, which is coming up. We received an invitation from VDOT to say that the spring CTB meeting will be coming up on Thursday, the 9th of May at 4 p.m. And this year it is at the VDOT auditorium on 86 Deacon Road, where we've had several public meetings in the past. And it's to discuss the 6-year improvement program, which is all the projects that are recommended for funding, right? So, next slide. What we usually do is send 2 or so board members from FAMPO to attend the CDB meeting and speak to any issues of concern to FAMPO, and they usually ask me to go as well. So I'm on purpose focusing on this. So we should, around this table, agree 1 or 2 people who are available to attend on that day in May. And then, sorry,
I second that.
Megan, who?
Is that it's a Thursday, I believe, right? Okay,
What is the date again?
Thursday, May 10th.
Just for
May
awareness,
9th.
Stafford County, sorry, I know probably gonna finish, but our sheriff's annual awards start at 5 that day.
So first of all, we need to send 1 or 2 people. Second of all, we need to decide, are there any particular items you want to say to the Secretary for Transportation and the CTB members who are there? And thirdly, do we also want to follow up with a letter? Next slide. What I've compiled for you here is a list of some of the things that we have said in the past. Late changes to the smart scale process and the smart scale technical guide cause chaos for MPOs and for jurisdictions to prepare their applications. And the biennial review or changes need to be finished much earlier. We've said this before, and in fact, it got worse since we made the point. This year it was worse, so it hasn't got better. Secondly, that should be a 2. Our letter to the secretary, we proposed, and our chairperson spoke to this before, and representation to the CTB itself. And we suggested this middle tier because we feel we're not as small as the small regions. We're not as big as the bigger regions. They started this process. Subsequent to our request, they actually did listen. They made a proposal which created a middle tier, and they had 1 MPO and some local jurisdictions that met the criteria, and then they voted it out.
Then
At the last
politics
minute.
got involved.
Politics got involved and they voted it out in December, January, so it suddenly disappeared again. So that's something we mentioned in the past. We still think that's, as the TAC, I think we still think that's a good idea. Thirdly, we requested VDOT to do a study, to improve the flow of traffic on the full US1 corridor, because it becomes the alternative to I-95 when there's any trouble on I-95. Where do they go? They go to US1. That doesn't work so well because there are lots of traffic lights on US1. There's lots of slowdown in traffic because of various local conditions. And we think it's a good idea to look at using smart technology, synchronizing robots, considering rationalizing access points to US one, and might even need to here or there build an underpass to make the traffic flow. We need a study to do that, and at the moment it's being done piecemeal. We do a little bit of work on this intersection, and then somebody else does a bit of work on another intersection. There's no kind of overall study. Fourthly, the extra lane from exit 126 to exit 130. We've spoken about this multiple times. We spoke about it at the last CTB spring meeting. Just giving you, those are some of the things that we mentioned in the past. Next slide. Some potential things you might want to add, new things. What we did as recently as the 21st of November, submit the request for Route 3 to be considered a corridor of statewide significance. We haven't had a reply to that. The last we heard was that our CTB member asked at the CTB meeting in, I'm thinking it was January, and the response was, well, we're still thinking about it, we're studying the issue, maybe it's only a portion of Route 3 that should be declared, blah, blah, blah. We haven't had a reply or even a, yes, got your letter kind of note. We have no response. And then the last one there, we're in support of dedicating additional funding to increase speed of stops, resources to support smart scale applications. There is concern around that as time goes on, there'll be less assistance available for smart scale projects. And this is something we did mention at the TAC last year. Might want to, so these are just a list of things, right? Because I know if I just have a blank sheet, it'll take longer. So I'm just trying to speed up your meeting by giving you some suggestions of things you might want to raise, but you might have other things. This is just a bunch of suggestions, things we did in the past, things we've recently talked.
Thank you, Ian.
Next slide. Okay, I'll get to that. Go back one. Okay, back one. If there's any.
Okay,
comments.
so do we have questions and suggestions? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also like to add a possible item on the nature of HPP and the inherent restrictions that it places. It is essentially, as it's structured today, it is essentially roads, bridges, tunnels for large metropolitan areas. Those are the only types of projects that are ever going to win HPP.
Mhm.
And if that's what they want to do, fine, put that in that category for the largest municipalities or largest NPOs. But don't sit here and have a statewide competition for something that all but 2 regions, maybe 3, have any chance of actually.
Great point. Couldn't agree with you more, which is why we were fighting for the different separate tier. And they heard us, but then when they voted, they changed their mind for various reasons. Marcy, not to put you on the spot, is there anything that you've heard regarding the Route 3 being in?
No, I have not heard the discussion that was being.
Okay.
We can pose the question of like, hey, is somebody gonna get back to?
That would be nice.
On that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can pose that question to Wade.
All right. Comments from those of you sitting around the table, what would you like for whoever the appointee may be at the May 9th meeting? What would you like for that person to share with the CTB? This is our opportunity. They're right here locally. We're crazy if we don't send somebody or have 1 or 2 policy committee members there to address. They will work around time constraints if we have to be at something else. They're very good about that. Lori.
So, thank you. I thought what you did last year was great and it encompassed all those items. So I would just really think that you were the best messenger last year for that, and it did encompass everything that was on there. So I would say go with what we've done last, I mean, you gotta change it up a little bit, but
Right.
I think all of those points are valid.
They're all
And
still.
can I
talking
ask,
points.
when it came down to the vote about the mid-range, what exactly happened there?
Golly.
I mean, who voted against it and why?
So Well, it's complicated and I wasn't in the meeting. Carrie, I don't know if you attended. My understanding is that they just threw out the whole package. Of everything. Not only that, they threw out all the suggested changes in one go. There was a whole list of things that they just rejected. And then it came back the following month with a revised proposal. So this was in the original proposal. They said no to all of it. There was a political fight going on. I don't fully understand it. And then the next month, they just brought back a revised proposal and this was all just missing. So it wasn't like oh, why shouldn't we have it? It was just like, it was there. They said, no, we don't like any of this. Come back with a revised proposal. The revised proposal just had this and some other things missing that were on the previous month's proposal.
So could Laura tell
Sure.
us exactly what happened in that?
Yeah, and Laura's not here today, but so at the meeting when out at the Fred Nat Stadium, I mean, I stood up and basically said, you know, I really implore you to just give this a conversation of at least 10 or 15 minutes tomorrow when you meet and the rest of what they had left in that day. And they did, you know, I just said, this is really important to our region. And I know you have a lot on your plate, but just give us 10 minutes. Let CTB member Sellers tell you why this is important to our region. And Ian spoke. And Becky, didn't you speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll take that, Ian. Ian.
Different meetings.
Right.
He was at a-
So, I mean, they heard us. I mean, you know, Marcy, you know what happens down in the opioid office, you know, kind of at a distance and politically. And I mean, I think it had some traction. This is just my opinion. I think they recognized that we make some very valid points. But at the end of the day, they weren't willing to take action. There's one thing, listening, hearing what our position is. But you know, it's kind of like your children at home. They can always come back and ask again. You said no the first time, right? But what's the damage done if we keep asking and keep bringing on it? I mean, I still believe in what we said, and I believe that there should be another category, because I agree with you. We're not going to get that HPP money. So, but I mean, you know, we're all on this policy committee together and welcome any feedback that you have. Monica?
Yeah, I absolutely think we should continue to ask for this, and sometimes that's the most effective thing. And if it is political, those things change every day. So yeah, I think we should continue to ask for this, and maybe we can kind of beef up our reasons why and just strengthen the case.
Okay, thank you.
Have you decided who's available to attend?
Yes, who else would, I would love to have somebody else there. If anybody is available at 4 o'clock.
I mean, I can be there briefly, if they're able to accommodate the schedules, like you said.
Right,
Yeah, I think I've also, the ninth, I think I also might have something on cloud as well. I gotta check, make sure the school event doesn't
Oh.
start, but.
So
Yes,
the
Marcy?
secretary- I have to be there in my official capacity, so.
Yes.
But the secretary starts promptly at 4. He is not a minute late. And we go through like a few of us talking, usually 15 minutes. And then he goes right into elected officials first.
Okay.
So, and then he goes into the order of citizens who signed up.
Okay.
But he always takes elected officials.
Yeah.
And the higher you are, the faster he takes it. So senators, delegates go first, and then chairman of boards and stuff go next.
All right, well, then I'll take the spot.
okay, we'll get you in and out. Okay,
And I give.
anybody else? We can have more people.
I'm happy to go.
Jason at the bottom.
Because it's both of us. I'm happy to go and
Yes,
Totally new to this process, but we have, other jurisdictions that might be in the same boat as we are, yes?
a couple
Regions.
regions,
So, okay,
right.
so does it make sense for us to talk with them ahead of time and see if they would kind of stand with us with that? I don't know the politics, I don't know if,
Yeah,
So So tentatively, yes. However, there is a meeting like this in each one of their districts. So they won't be at a meeting in our district because there'll be a meeting in their
But
district.
if he hears it 3 and 4 times.
But I think that there is some merit to making the argument of these issues in other regions to suggest, so we could maybe,
And we're the last meeting.
Oh, we
All
are?
other meetings go before us, we're the last meeting.
And are there meetings, end of April, beginning of
They
May?
start 20th? They start the 18th. They start this Thursday.
Okay, Well-
with some of those.
please.
With some of those items, a lot of other districts will benefit. The one about the middle tier, we're the only MPO that's gonna benefit. The others won't
Oh, well,
benefit.
that's what happened.
There are other counties that would benefit that are outside of our region. But we're the only MPO that would benefit because the others, because we are just different, right? That's why we're making this case, because we don't fit with the big guys. We don't fit with the small guys. We're the only one that actually is in between those sizes. The others are either too small or too big. And we get hit by the traffic going both directions.
Right, Monica?
Is that maybe the concern that if there are no others that'll benefit from it, that we're kind of not really, there's not really competition? if
So we're
there's a-
creating a category all for us.
There are other counties,
That would be a fair critique.
there are other counties that will benefit. But we're the only MPO that will benefit. So there are
So,
counties in other MPO regions that would benefit as counties.
yeah, I can't remember, did we provide them with data showing how we have been, I'll say disadvantaged, or how the process has not bode well for us? Yeah, neglected, that could be a good word. I mean,
I
have,
don't think we did. We actually did quite well with Smart Scale last round. Our problem is we think we're gonna, well, I'll speak for myself. Let me not blame other people. I think we're gonna crash and burn this round because we're gonna get caught in all the different new criteria. We're not gonna do so well. But I mean, maybe we will. If they all
that's
put-
not what we want to hear when it comes
if
from a
they-
transportation
If they
perspective.
all put in bad applications, we'll do better.
But that's something we can't rely on.
We
Yeah.
can't because we don't know, right?
Yeah.
You have any input there, Marcy?
I have no idea what the new are going, how
That's,
they're gonna affect us, and I don't think
that's the
anybody
problem.
does. I mean, it's,
we're concerned because we don't know how it's gonna play out.
But why did they make the new rules? What precipitated that?
well, that kind of comes down to when they were at Nats Park. The secretary had mentioned that we had, more than twice the number of applications than, we could award. And so there, the whole thing is get less applications, but get better quality projects. And they were looking for bigger projects that, Jason won't like this, but like, they don't want to see a whole lot of bike ped. They want to see more roadway improvements, more operational improvements, things like that.
Big, heavy transit projects, but not small
Yes.
ones.
So they want to, that's kind of, I mean, there's only so much money. And they want to
Right.
make sure that they're spending it on, the biggest needs is on their opinion. of the
Jason?
biggest needs.
Okay, thank you, Marcy.
I do have a question, for this, so. Is it? I guess, it's a little interesting to hear that. I get the maintenance side of it, we don't wanna have bridges collapsing, we don't wanna have tunnels collapsing, we need to take care of what we have. Totally get that, and if that was the goal, then, okay, fine.
No, that's a whole different pot of money.
See, and that's it right there, is that. Especially in the large metro areas, if you wanna talk about bang for the buck, that's where it's gonna be, Northern Virginia, Hampton. Richmond. Everyone who actually lives there, in terms of their public officials, they all talk about the need for increased public transit. Because, we've kind of run out of the geometry of roads. So I'm not quite sure I understand the disconnect between the state level and the reality on the ground. Can you help me understand that?
I cannot help you understand that.
So just to clarify, HPP does include heavy transit, like big rail.
Oh, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
But big transit, not your little,
I understand. But I mean, but if it includes heavy transit, that's at least something.
so rail, if you apply for trains, stations, that kind of thing, yes, but
But, I
not,
mean, but it's a shame too, because I mean, especially with just the geography of Virginia. This is just soapbox now. Buses, just, I mean, just, it's much more flexible, the, flex route as opposed to fixed route. It just drives me crazy, the design.
So I
Lori?
think, okay, this is my stab in the dark on this, but if you look at what's happened with transit, BRE, that sort of thing. I mean, we haven't come back yet. Maybe they've just decided that, they don't want to they want to move the cars that we have on the road and go in a different direction and not do bike ped stuff so much.
It's not bike ped, I'm not talking bike ped, I'm talking about local commuting, and BRE, that's a commuter system, and I get that, but let's say you live in Hampton Roads, and you're just trying to get from one place to the other in Hampton Roads, and just being able to take cars off the road by giving people more options by taking, a train or a bus or something like that. That's all I'm saying. So that's what it.
All right, so it sounds like, is it the will of this policy committee that we'll stay with kind of what we did last time? Okay,
plus those two things.
all right,
Yet for people stating the same message, so.
Right. right. Yeah, those other counties, Ian, could you reach out to them? Because they're probably on the docket here sooner.
Who are the other counties?
We actually have a list because they produced an agenda of the CTB that listed which jurisdictions would be in that category, so I'll have to just.
Feeling like they were over in the Shenandoah Valley.
I was gonna guess.
Albemarle was one of them, yeah, yeah, Chip can help us there, okay.
Quick point on coming back to this and the fact that we would be the only MPO to benefit from it. Maybe instead of just not doing it, they could explore expanding the parameters so that maybe it's not just us in it that would benefit. Just a suggestion to bring, if that,
Yeah,
those numbers change, then maybe that's more palatable, so.
okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
Next
all
slide.
right.
So this, we spoke to last time, and I'm not gonna go over this in detail, but just next slide. Future transit. This is the list of questions we put to you in, I think, October or something, and I was asked to bring them back. We didn't have time last meeting to discuss them. Not asking you for a long discussion, but either this meeting or next meeting, if you could tell me whether you want me to pack this away or whether you want me to work with FXVGO and OmniRide and others to bring you some suggestions or new ideas or whatever. But we don't have to do this. I can tell you my staff have worked really hard the last 4 months and they're not running around looking for extra work. However, transit for our region is an important question, and if you want us to do more research on those sorts of things, we're happy to do it. But we can just as easily park it if that's the feeling. So not asking for any detail, but either this meeting or next meeting, you could just give us your guidance. Do we park this or do you want us to carry on working on it? Because I need guidance, because it takes time and it will take Red Transit and OmniRide also time and staff time to work on these things.
Okay,
I think we should absolutely go forward with it. I mean, no rush, obviously you'll have your hands full, but the sooner we start, the better. We obviously have some needs, so.
anybody else? Will?
Ian, can you just say what you mean by alternatives?
So the discussion was had last year, October, November, to whether we should look at an alternative of FXVGO operating as an independent regional transit authority.
So you're talking, okay.
Or an alternative of providing a different kind of bus service, maybe a combination, as you see low down, on-demand micro transit together with some buses or some other combination of providing local transit or regional transit, right? And if we're happy with where we are, that's okay. We don't have to do this. But if you would like us to explore those kinds of options, we can look at providing you just information. This didn't start with FAMPO staff. This started as a request at this policy meeting. And we started by last time inviting Bob actually and Jamie to make presentations to just give you some first information. We can carry it on or we can stop, and it's your decision. Staff isn't pushing an agenda.
Okay, Lori?
So while I don't want to stress your staff any more than they already are, I think, Bob, when you did your presentation last time, and we're talking about this fiscal cliff that's coming and that sort of thing, and same with Fredericksburg Go, and seeing these numbers now. I do think we should look at what available options are.
Sort of high level stuff.
High level, I would think high level, like what, and like we discussed, I want to know more information
I'm
about
gonna
who these
show that
people are.
It's the next slide.
Okay. Who are these people that are needing this service, and what would better serve them? And would it be cheaper or less expensive? I should never say cheap, right? Less expensive to do it in a different way than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Drew?
I think Supervisor Hayes beat me to the punch.
okay.
Okay,
Just
and I
go-
think
the
also,
next slide.
what would be important is looking at what is sustainable. What does our region need? What is sustainable? What are the services that are required of these people? And, it could be a kind of a hybrid between what Bob does and what FXB Go does. And, I don't know that much about how they operate as a part of the city. I don't know if you guys subsidize them out of your general fund, or are they completely a separate operation? And do they report up to the city manager? I mean, I'd like to know a little bit more about kind of the structural side of the house as well.
So I can tell you, we do fund them out of the general fund, just like,
Oh.
Stafford, Spotsylvania, we provide funds as well.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, no transit authority, or no transit agencies, 100% sustainable. As
Right.
That whole concept, we don't ask for them to take it themselves.
right. But I'm thinking along the lines of like our landfill in Spotsylvania, and of course Fredericksburg's a part of our landfill, but in Spotsylvania, your landfill is subsidized by your general fund. Our landfill is complete self-operating enterprise fund and does not receive any subsidy from the general fund. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in my head. But I think that really at some point, we almost need to have kind of a work session on this topic. I think there's a lot to it, and there's a lot that we need to understand. And, Jamie and Bob run a phenomenal, you have a very robust system up in Prince William County, and we need to tap into that knowledge and figure out what's best for this region. What do we need? So that's me. Will?
No, thanks, Chairman. I similarly, right, would like to know more about this, but I want to make sure that your cost benefit analysis is talking about benefits too, right? Efficiency is great and cost saving is great, but I want to make sure that, we have some conversations about what kind of transit system is actually going to best meet the unmet needs of the community, right? Because I certainly wouldn't describe myself as happy with the status of transit in our region, right? Me, that unhappiness is not so much fiscal as I think we're not actually providing the kind of service that is. So I'm interested in you putting more time into it, but I want to make sure that it's focused on that we are also asking questions about like what are some ways we can use those operating efficiencies to like better meet unmet needs of our
Okay, Monica?
Just a side note here, something that came up to me this week. There was some concern about the stop going away, where Stafford County is now going to have our early voting, because I think maybe because Germana came out of that building. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's something that I think we need to hear back on as well. FXB.
The bus stop is being removed.
There's a bus stop, but I guess there was some discussion about it being removed, but we just decided to move our early voting location to And part of the discussion was that there would be transit available for people.
Okay, I'll find out about that.
Okay, Ian, going back.
So this slide is just the answer to one of the, well, partial answer to one of the questions you asked me to find out for you by route, what the ridership is, and this is partial answer. I've got the numbers from FXB Go for Spotsylvania. So they are the current operating routes in Spotsylvania and the ridership on those particular routes. And then the right column is the monthly total. So you can see how many people are riding per month in Spotsylvania on FXB Go. That just gives you the numbers. I've also asked them if they can give me the numbers for the rest of the network. We've got, in fact, FXB Go in the room. Yeah, I'm forgetting, right? So I've also asked for Stafford and the city what the numbers are. Just that's answering questions that you asked me last time. I think that might be the last slide. Is there one more, Connor?
Question,
Chris?
Just the dates.
sorry, question on that one.
Yes, sir.
How much, since we do have Fred in the room, do you know what our subsidy is to Fred from Sponsi? Is it 350,000?
No.
150,000? Okay. And so the cost per rider, and so you're just looking at those numbers that you had up there, the cost per rider. You have basically 3,000 trips in December, 2,600. Let's just use round numbers. That could be 100 people riding 26 days in a row. I mean, that's not 2,600 individual people taking one trip. That's 2,600 people, I guess, riding the bus. So
Trips.
you might be talking about a very small number of actual people that are using that.
Yeah, it's 1,000 people doing 3,000 trips.
Right, which is when we start talking about meeting the needs, we gotta figure out what are we expecting of a transit system? Because we have absolutely no concrete, I mean, Jason wants something that, and somebody else wants something, everybody else, I mean, but if you don't know where you're going, you're not gonna know how to get there. And we're gonna have to spin our wheels trying to do something that we don't even know. I mean, we'll mention needs and that's perfectly fine. But we need to list out what those needs are so that we make sure that we are actually accomplishing something.
Yes, Jason?
Thank you. Chris is right, and one of the questions that I posed more informally to FXB Go folks in the past, just as a data collection exercise, I want to understand gaps. So, and I am just using the city just because it's the smallest of the localities, so I feel like it would be the easiest to do. My hypothetical that I put forth was, what would it take? How much would it cost to let any person in the city go from any point A to any point B in a total of 45 minutes with no greater than a 15-minute transfer and no greater than a quarter-mile walk from the stop to their final destination, or from their point of origin to the bus stop as well. It's that kind of a concrete model that I think you're trying to, that would fit what you were going for.
Well, I mean,
Just understand the gap,
right.
for instance.
Well, I mean, that's what you're looking for.
Oh, I'm gonna say I'm saying that as an example. Because we say what are we asking for? What do we want?
Right.
Right, and so,
You're saying we want metrics.
I
whatever
just
that
want
looks like for-
something to say, this is what the gap is, and I mean, and if they come back and say it's $2 billion, okay, well, fine. But I just wanna know what the actual gap is between what we have today and what, yes, like someone like me would want.
Well, and I guess sort of what I'm looking for too is in the city, it's different because you guys are you're urban. County isn't.
Right.
Stafford isn't. So what are we as Sponsi looking for? What do our residents want with transit? Who uses it? All those type of things that we just really don't have a handle on. Because if you look at the Fred numbers and go way back, go take a 20-year look at these things and take out, the numbers were dropping off. So what was going on? Why did people not use the system? Because were we not providing a system that people wanted or needed, or I mean, so unless you put that system into place, just throwing a bus out there on a route and hoping people jump on, is not the way to do it. And from my point of view, it feels like that because we have more people, your percentage of ridership should be going up at least to correspond with the increase in population, and it doesn't seem to be doing that.
And I think if I may just respond.
Sure.
Chair, that I think, there's two parts to that. One could be the route network itself. And I think that's something that FSBGO has been looking at with their updated strategic plan, is to update that route network into a way that might fit your population more effectively. I mean, the second part is that also, you as the spots and board of supervisors, and also staff and board of supervisors, if you have a different set of needs that you think meet your populations better, then by all means, I mean, to bring those to the table as well. And then we can give all of that information to the FXBGO and OmniRide folks and start to have that discussion for each of the localities, completely recognizing that Spotsylvania is different from the city, Stafford is different from the city, Spotsy and Stafford are even a little bit different from each other, but more similar than the city. So I think before we go too far down the, I'll call it the death spiral of, you cut more, and now all of a sudden there's no point in having it at all. Also understand what it would take to have that more functional amount as well, because there is a critical mass to this with public transit. There always is. It doesn't matter what your locality is. There's a certain amount that you have to get to make it viable in the first place. Because you're right, run 3 buses along a few little fixed routes in an area as large as Spotsylvania County. Yeah, it's not going to serve that large of a population. But if you start to add more and give people more options where they live, you might see vastly different numbers.
Okay, so I think this is gonna end up being a robust conversation. I'm gonna go to Janet and then Drew, and then I think we need to decide where do we want to go from here. I'd also like to hear from Bob while he's sitting here at the table, based on the input that you've gotten, and Austin, if you would like to speak as well. Okay, Janet.
I have 2 things. One, if I'm remembering correctly, the FO numbers have been going up consistently and that they are above pre-pandemic levels.
Yes.
But
It's because it's free.
yes,
Yeah, it's because
Well-
it's free, and go back 10 years before the pandemic and see when our population was here. This is what I'm saying. Our population was here, ridership was up, our population goes up, ridership goes down. Why? It makes no sense. And so now we make it free.
down. Oh,
Well,
okay,
it's
okay.
not because it's free.
I think I mean, Chris is right from a historical perspective, absolutely.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, have we asked the business owners at all, like, is there any way to figure out, like, is this serving is this a service that's getting people to work? Like, if we get rid of or cut services, are people not going to be able to get to work? We know that that's an issue. So it's a.
Okay, Drew, and then
That's a good question to ask.
Drew and Bob.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have a question for Ian. Will you be able to pull out kind of to piggyback off of previous comments? Is it 1,000 people doing 30 trips, or is it, are people taking round trips? Is it convenient? That kind of stuff for a little more granularity. Not necessarily that you have to give me an answer right now, but
So,
do you have some of that?
so I can give you the answer, and the answer is probably no. Because think practically,
Mhm.
now you're sitting on a bus. People are getting on and off and getting on and off. How do we capture that practically? It's hard to do because, well, first of all, you've got to have somebody capturing that information. Even the automated counters on the doors, they don't know who that person is. They agnostic to who the person is.
Yeah.
So it's much harder to find, and the only way you really find that information is through surveys. And also we've had, comments that sometimes maybe the surveys aren't representative enough. So if I do a survey and bring it to you, then you might tell me that you don't like the result, right? Hate me for saying this, but I'm just gonna say it, right?
So
I used to be a politician, so I feel like I can have this amount of cheek, although for some of you, it might be a little too much. It's like, whenever the survey tells you what you don't like, then you think
So-
there's something wrong.
So
with the survey.
if I may, Ian, the way you can determine that is through paid systems. You can see where destinations go.
If
So,
you have electronic
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there is a solution out there, but
That
right
is
now, if
right.
it's free, people can get on and get off. We'll never be able to capture it, but
Even when it wasn't free, though, they don't have electronic ticketing.
okay.
I don't know if Bob has it in his local buses either. It's difficult to do, expensive to do.
Unbelievably expensive to collect money. That's the dirty little secret, is it is unbelievably expensive to collect money.
That's
You're
true.
talking about the hardware, $40,000 a box, maybe you can get them cheaply. Or I'm sorry, 25, you can buy them used for a transit system that's offloading their old units. But then you have parts repair, never mind the harvesting the revenue. So you have the personnel to actually harvest the revenue. You don't do it alone, you do it 2 people. Cash counting services, auditing services, armored car services. Now you have to balance all of that. Most small transit systems recover less than 10% of actual fare after cost. So if you brought in $100,000 in fares, and that's after the capital cost of buying, that's after buying the hardware. So let's say you got a state or a federal grant to buy the hardware. That's at least off the book, so to speak. Most small systems bring in they actually recovered less than 10% because the ridership. So it's a philosophical question of, do you want to collect you want that 10% or do you want maximum utilization? So it's transit's a little bit different than your traditional public service. Let's use police officers or fire departments, et cetera. They're responding to crime. So you have more crime, you need more police officers. It's almost a 1-for-1 ratio. Transit's not like that. Once you put it out there, if it's not being used, it's running whether you like it or not. So it's a little different in that you can fill the resources, and once you hit a scenario where the bus is full, now maybe you need to do something different to create the resources to do it right. So it's a little bit different in that economic model. So for a small system, usually it's a pay their fair share. The other interesting part of it is I would encourage you to talk to your social services departments. If you have a homeless drop-in center, if you have your senior departments inside your governments, they typically had a budget for buying passes from Fred. So what's happened is you used to give them $10,000 and then they give the $10,000 to Fred to buy tickets. And now what you're doing is you're actually since they have zero fare, those departments are just telling more people go ride. So now that ridership's high, so once you start charging a fare, they're going to go to your social service departments, your homeless drop-in center, your senior centers, and they're gonna want the passes. So your departments are gonna turn around and ask you in your budget to raise the budget from what they had pre-pandemic because the utilization's there. Community colleges, Mary Washington's doing the same thing. So there's going to be those types of items that end up just being passed back to you through different mechanisms in your budget.
Okay, Drew?
Okay, so I didn't really intend to go that direction, but thank you. I guess what I was asking is, can it happen? And you both of you explained why we can't get that kind of granularity. However, not to be a killjoy against transportation at all, it's typically, as we can use our Northern Virginia metro system as an example, that the ridership serves destinations. People are going places on a regular basis. That's stating the obvious, of course. Right now, maybe Spotsy isn't there, but there are some emerging destinations. In fact, the VA is going to be one. That's going to be that could be a destination where a lot of people from a spoke hub type of thing could take advantage of. Maybe even down the Route 1 corridor to Kalahari and back. I don't know, data centers, et cetera. So that being stating that, understanding how people get on and get off this current free system is important, however you decide or however you can determine that. Because right now, I mean, when I drive around, I hate to be skeptic, but I don't see a whole lot of people. And when I see a bus, there's 3 people on our little transit. I'm not saying that there aren't other times that people use it, but knowing that would really be helpful for us to either look to our future, knowing like how it's utilized and like,
We really, I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing that we need here is we need more data,
yes,
very granular data. Where are the destinations? Where are they, like the streetlight data that we had? Where we've made a lot of decisions based on that streetlight data. And I think Because that's how we all like to make decisions, is based on data that is accurate. So, all right, I wanna, we've got to figure out how we're gonna move. forward.
I want to speak
I have
about
a-
right action.
Common discussion.
Okay, Lori, Will,
Ian,
Yes, ma'am.
so is there any, because I realize that this is gonna cost your staff time, all right?
And Fred and.
Okay.
And OmniRide.
Are there,
not just
are
mine.
there any, is there any, are there any funds that we can use to get a consultant or something to help take the pressure off of your staff to do this?
Fred is waiting to give a comment, so maybe I'll speak after this.
okay?
You can.
Our transit strategic plan is gonna answer a lot of these questions. You really want to see what routes are not, they don't have a lot of riders, which routes have a lot of riders. What areas are people going, that are underserved needs, talk with them, and a couple of the people on there from veteran organizations. And they're really excited to have their riders go from veterans, to Veterans Hospital, from Stafford, from Spotsylvania. They're really excited to take our people in the community there and to help our veterans. So I think that's really important. And we do have a lot of, I think a lot of them to see just sometimes you might see at certain times empty buses, but other times we get on our buses, actually have extra seats to some of the buses because they're so full. So we do have our times throughout the day. And I talk to people and they're like, help me get to work. So we
Sure.
are really doing a lot. And once we have a strategic plan, we'll figure out how better to serve better, whether it's getting rid of certain stops, have a lot of people, to add stops where we want to go.
So in addition to this, then, could you give us what the high frequencies are?
Once our plan is done, we'll talk really,
And when will that be?
either by June,
Okay.
so it's coming,
Okay,
we're finalizing.
okay. Will,
I wanted to speak to the question moving forward that you raised, right? Because Chair Bonke, you suggested a notion of some sort of a work session of this group first, and I wonder if that this seems like a really productive discussion, and maybe we should do some more of that before we have Ian or anyone else to burn any staff time, right? Like to have a clearer idea of what it is that we want to know, right? Because I mean, it sounds like some people are interested in finding cost savings. Some people are interested in gap analyses, right? What's, what could we be doing, right? What are we not doing? And it strikes me, we need to give Ian and Fred and OmniRide clearer directives before we ask them to burn staff time. When we say do, cost benefit analysis of alternatives, like what are we gunning for?
right?
So this might be should we switch the cart and the horse here and schedule that conversation before we ask them to burn
Okay.
in staff time?
I think.
Monica,
Yeah,
Monica,
Committee of one, I'm
So
happy to.
I think in my mind, the way it could fit together is that we wait for that strategic plan. We have that strategic plan that goes out to the different localities respectively. We can weigh in on that and then we can move forward to give direction and maybe have work sessions and things like that.
Yeah.
Sound reasonable?
Yep.
okay, Chris, did you have something else?
No, but I do like Will's idea that if we're gonna do that, we need to have some direction before staff puts something
Right,
together and we
right.
see it and go, what is this?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're all in
Yeah.
agreement on that. Okay,
Great.
So how's
So it's a
that
whole,
to do that?
right? Yeah.
That's the thing. Can we put on the agenda for next month and everybody bring ideas together at that time, perhaps?
I think we should wait for
I think we
the
should wait for the plan.
plan.
Well, the draft,
data.
the draft of the strategic plan, maybe.
Yeah, so maybe after the summer
So
recess?
should I schedule a presentation of FXB Go's draft strategic plan to be followed by a discussion as to what else you need? Does that
I think
sound-
that worked. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay,
Next topic.
anything else, Ian?
I think it's finished. Just to remind you of dates. The RTA subcommittee is set for 25th of April at 6 PM in this very room. The CTB meeting, I've told you, 4 PM on May the 9th. Public comment on the SS4A is finished. It's closed. BRE is doing a system plan update. You can follow the developments of that online, and the transit strategic plan, there's a link where you can follow the progress of that as well.
All right, any questions for Ian? All right, great. We're gonna go down to our action items. The first one's resolution 2429. Adopt GWRC Safe Streets and Roads for All, Safety Action Plan.
Great.
Becky,
Madam Chair, I'll make it three. If you could go down to the whereas, down there, on the second page, at the bottom, the actions. Keep on going, keep on going. There you go, great. We have, the safety action plan is completed. You have in your packet, including the public involvement period. This resolution that's before you tonight adopts the plan and adopts these strategies. The target for, reducing fatalities and serious injuries by 50% by the year 2045 matches VDOT's strategic highway safety plan. We also commit to an ongoing review of progress with a stakeholder group involving, made up of safety advocates. That's the conclusion of my presentation. If Mr. Allis wants to pick up.
No, you've seen the report. We brought it back to you twice, just asking for you to adopt it.
okay, do I have a motion for resolution 24-29?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item, SS4A Supplemental Planning Grant and Implementation Grant Projects. Becky again.
Yes, thank you. We're very proud to bring these projects to you, and you can just scroll. We're going to show you, these are projects that your locality staff has brought forward to FAMPO for development of consideration of a future application for these SS4A Safe Streets and Roads for All supplemental and implementation grant projects. I'll go through the projects and then maybe Ian can wrap up with the critical facts at the end. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Next slide. This is a table of projects you'll see a map for on the next slide. And this is a regional project idea with Caroline County's US 1, Mary Road, Page Road intersection, and Spotsylvania County's Arcadia US 1 and Arcadia Mary Road. Next slide, please. This is a high crash location in a triangle that crosses the county boundaries, and it involves options to look at the three intersections and at Caroline County, Arcadia, Caroline County, Mary, and Page. Their staff is looking at three options for the consultant to study. The consultant would install traffic cameras to view traffic counts and to catch what we call near misses. We know the crashes that occur when we have a traffic report, but we know there are also a lot of near misses out there. The dangerous location at Caroline County are the left turns from the side street, eastbound Mary, to try to go northbound on US 1, westbound Page, try and go southbound on US 1. That vehicle has to find a safe gap in the 4 lanes that are going. And then there is a proposal in Smartsdale to add an additional lane in the middle for left turn traffic. So in the future, that side street traffic is going to have to find a gap, a safe gap to make that left. So the options that will be looked at will be to find the safety impact of adding the left turn lanes by themselves, a full traffic signal and turning lanes on each approach, as well as an R cut. And then Spotsylvania's 2 intersections will be reviewed in tandem with one another. Next slide. This is the supplemental planning grant Spotsylvania staff has brought up to do a road safety audit on 3 high crash roads in Spotsylvania. And they have a high number of roadway departure and lane departure crashes. Next slide. This is another list of Spotsylvania County roads to look at these roads, and we're going to refine the list. We were refining the list with staff. Some of these are on the road safety audit that you saw on the previous slide, and this would provide videos of the roadways in each direction and an analysis of all the vertical curves, horizontal curves that don't meet intersection or road design standards and your intersections, and do planning level cost estimates at a set location. Next slide. This is the map of those roadways you saw on the earlier slide. So what's fantastic about this, you have great geographic diversity. You're looking at really roadways across your county in Spotsylvania County that are really high crash locations. Next slide. This is a pretty amazing slide. These are the crashes at those locations. And Ms. Hayes, we've got a clear winner there of total crashes on Tidewater Trail. So I'm really proud of your staff for bringing, they picked some good bad ones. And I'll be able to sell them. Next slide, please. This is another implementation grant being considered for the Andorra Old Plank intersection. This is one of the highest locations in the whole George Washington Regional Commission area. Next slide.
Wait, where's Andorra Drive? I know Old Plank. Where's Andorra?
Okay. It is about, Andorra is a little leg that goes between Route 3 and Old Plank.
Oh, okay.
And
Chancellor Elementary is right there.
yeah,
Okay.
classic
Got
element.
it.
Next slide. And that project is to convert the existing three-way stop to a roundabout. This is an implementation project that Spotsylvania County has worked with VDOT to install. This is an existing shoulder hardening that VDOT has done on River Road in Spotsylvania County. There is a joint between the existing pavement and the shoulder. And VDOT has, this is a subject area of deterioration between that joint. So Spotsylvania is really stepping up to the plate. We're gonna get a grant to put the shoulder hardening on these four roads. And Spotsylvania is gonna step up and pay 100% of the overlay cost that's now required when VDOT does that to seal that edge. Next slide. These roads, Stafford County staff is working with VDOT to give us costs to do similar shoulder hardening on these roads as well. Next slide. And this is maybe where I'll let Mr. Allis take off.
Okay. Becky, can you go back to the slide prior regarding the wedge widening that's listed there? Because we're doing that, we're funding that through our transportation program every time VDOT comes in and is putting down the new layer. So,
This will get you federal dollars to do that.
okay,
So instead of paying 100% or whatever it is,
okay,
80% can be paid by the
Sweet.
federal government, and you can then get more roads for your buck.
yes, okay, perfect, thank
But
you.
there's a condition, I'm just warning. The other counties have given us their cost estimates. VDOT has been asked to check the cost estimates for Stafford County for these projects, and we urgently need those cost estimates before we submit this. So we've got the roads, just need to know that the cost estimates are correct so we can.
Okay, and
submit.
how, are
So
we
we
under
can-
the gun on that?
Yes, it's in process. I believe Matthew has sent it to VDOT and requested their assistance. We're waiting for the response, but we have to have it before we make this submission.
Is VDOT gonna be able to make those deadlines? Will you let us know if we need a consultant or something to hit those deadlines?
This is the last piece that we need before we can submit. So we need to have the costs of those projects.
I know we have the costs because these are all in our bond references.
Right, right. Yeah, but those are probably old.
Yeah, the
Those are old
VDOT
costs.
costs are, this is going to be next year, right? So we need to know very recent cost estimates because it's going to be built
I
like,
think they just renewed something, so they should have.
okay, anyway.
Okay, all right.
We'll do that offline. Just go to the end, please. So we are asking you tonight to endorse this process so that we can prepare and submit these projects. The submission date is going to be before your next meeting. So what we normally try to do is to give you a presentation and then come back the next month. You're under the whip here. And the reason for that is that the federal government's deadlines, you know, they only tell you at the last minute, by the way, the deadline's in 8 weeks. So we're rushing to try and get this in for the deadline. So forgive us. we can't bring this back to you again before the deadline for submission on the 16th of May. So we need just, it doesn't have to be a formal vote, but we just need your agreement that we can make the submission. Of course, if you find out later you really hate all of this, you can not take the money, right? So not forced to take the money, but we would like to put these applications in for the 3 jurisdictions that have asked. And you'll see the next item on the agenda, which Becky will get to you, is Stafford is doing a separate study in the same program, and there's a lot of support in the pack, but we'll get there in a moment. We just need you to all consciously say to us, yes, we may
Yes.
proceed and submit those projects on your behalf.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Do you need help with the grant submission? Because we hired an external lobbying firm that deals with federal grants.
Becky's done and is doing a marvelous job. We just need those cost estimates for the Stafford projects. And then we think, Becky, we'll be able to do it, right?
Okay.
Thank you for the offer.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Everybody happy?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Next,
so wait a minute, yes, so then we've got,
the Stafford letter of support.
right, so,
Becky, you want to talk to that or should I?
Yes, this is the letter of support provided by Stafford County for your consideration to endorse their supplemental grant application.
Motion to approve.
okay. Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All right, favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, going down to item C. Resolution 24-31 directing public comment period for our draft fiscal year 2025 UPWP.
Make your life real easy. It's almost identical to last one. The amount of changes we made are very, very small. So you've seen basically this with the year 24 on it. We put the year 25 on it. We made the obvious changes, right? So we've added a couple more words, language of things we can do so that if you decide to ask us to do certain things, we've already put the language in. For those of you who are new, this is our business plan. And VDOT holds our feet to this. So if we try to do big projects that are not in this document, VDOT will tell us, no, you have to get the policy committee to vote. We have to get public comment on this, and we have to show where we're going to get the money from to do the work, right? So they hold our feet to this. So I've kept it simple for you. It's almost the same as last year because we haven't changed. Ask the TAC allocate 4,600 and some odd dollars because we had a shortfall in our budget from DRPT this year. However, I've got some good news. We got revised figures. They have increased our allocation, so we're giving the money back to the tax so you can all have it for your roadway projects or whatever it is. However, please would you vote to put this out for public comment? There's almost nothing in here that you haven't
Okay,
seen.
wait, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there, no, you
Wait,
can't.
I
no.
can't.
All right, anybody want a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the UPWP? Lori?
Okay, so in this document, I believe that there's some discussion about RTA, correct?
Yes.
And this is directing staff to research for the RTA. Now, I personally have a major problem with that because we have not decided to do anything with that RTA. And you put it in writing, then all of a sudden it becomes reality. So I can't support this
I can alleviate.
without that
I can-
taken out.
I can alleviate your fears. This document does not produce any actual results of its own. This just gives us as staff federal permission to do research. It doesn't produce results that involve projects. We don't spend money on anything other than research and the work to pay the rent of the building and all that kind of thing. And VDOT's here, they can tell me if I'm crazy or wrong or what the case is, right? This gives us legal permission to do research. You may decide any one of the projects in here, you don't want it anymore. You don't want any more research to be done. All you do is at this meeting, you tell me, we're shutting the RTA, we don't want any more research, and then we stop. But if we don't put it in here and you want to do another month worth of research into the new year, new financial year, we then have to go and add it back in 30 days public comment. We don't want to let us work on it until the public comment is finished. It's an administrative document. You should be more worried about when we allocate funding, because then it's a problem. Then you need to vote no, because we're allocating funding to the RTA. This allocates nothing to the RTA other than giving us the legal permission to do that work that I have to do for your meeting next week after. So it's, in order for me to allocate staff time to go and make those nice tables for you, I have to have it in here. If you take it out of here, then I'm gonna have to come and ask for permission to
Right.
do the hours of work. It's about hours of staff time. It's got nothing to do with allocating funding to
Yeah.
projects.
The only other thing that
So this
it
is-
also does do is, like if you wanted to increase your staffing, it would be in the UPWP and you would put
I
that,
can't increase my staffing beyond what is in this document. I would have
Right.
to come here and do an
Correct.
amendment or get your permission. So
correct,
this allows me to employ staff, allows me to allocate staff time to research. It allows me to pay the electricity
But
bill.
this is for FY 25.
Correct. Starts on the
We're
first.
not in FY 25.
No, but we have to approve it in the 2 months leading up to the 1st of July. We have to approve this because it starts on the 1st of July. You
So
understand what I'm saying?
I do, but why can't we wait and push this off until next month?
Comment, right?
You can, you're not approving it tonight.
we're just putting it
You're
out
just
for
putting it
public
out for
comment.
public comment. Then it's gotta go back to the TAC. Then it's gotta come back to you again. Then you decide whether you're happy with it.
And we have to have it approved, if I remember correctly, like in June, because
May,
federal
well,
highways,
preferably May, because they want it in June. So
Okay.
we can do it in June if it's an emergency, but I prefer to do it in May because June is injury time. If we screw it up in June, then we are not allowed to work on the 1st of July because we don't have an approved business plan.
correct,
It's a business plan, it's not, doesn't
It is.
allocate money to projects.
right.
Okay.
People in this room might like that.
I'm sorry, what? Ah,
I mean,
Marcy,
if
do you have
you
anything
don't
that,
approve this by a certain date in June, we have to fold our arms. We're not allowed to work.
do you have anything to add?
Well, just that I agree with Ian in that it's better to put it in the plan and not do it than to not put it in the plan and then take 2 months to get it in the plan if you want to do something. It's definitely better to have it in the plan than to not have it.
okay.
You
so
can still
Matt-
stop me. You can still stop me. You can say it to me in a meeting like this, stop this program and I have to stop. it.
Okay, so, all right, thank you for the explanation. And I think it's duly noted, I'm not, how, because we have taken board poll on this, and it's a no right now. So,
Was it a poll or a vote?
well, it was,
I
we,
thought you took a
we
vote.
did, but it's, it's a vote, but it's
So you're gonna vote on that issue?
right now.
I gotcha. Okay, Drew?
Can you speak just briefly as to what's on page, whatever it is, that speaks to the RTA that you want? Like how are you describing?
44.
Page 40.
So
Describing
the
that.
simple answer is it's exactly the same language that was in last year's one. I haven't changed that.
So-
Wasn't here last year.
Wasn't here.
Okay, well, we can,
Do you mind?
can't remember what page exactly it's on, but it
Page
basically,
44.
it basically gives staff the permission to do research on various projects, and one of those projects is potentially a future RTA.
Was the RTA, it wasn't in there last year.
We added it because BDOT said no work on it until we've added
I
it.
gotcha.
We added it after the UPW.
Correct.
Okay,
But it's been in there for months and months and months.
right, right.
It's not a new, it's not a, there you go. So, research, document production, planning for a regional transportation authority. And the end products will be RTA related documents, legal and consultation services, research reports, studies as directed by the FAMPO policy committee. So if the policy committee member says stop, then we stop.
Yep,
Can we
okay.
just real briefly scroll up a little bit, please, so I can see the whole page,
Yes, that is the top of the page.
on the bottom. Keep going,
Tasks will support one or more.
keep going. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
It's just for staff time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. We've had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries with one abstention. One against. Okay, moving on to CMAC and STBG, project allocations. John Rideout. Dr. John
By
Rideout.
way of introduction, just before anybody gets wound up again, this is also,
No one's wound up. Yeah.
this is also just to put it out for public comment. You're not voting on any of this tonight, right?
Yeah.
Just for public comment, because we have to give these however many days public.
The fact that you think somebody's gonna get spun up means that you know we're gonna get spun up, right?
No, you might not.
Okay, Dr. Rideout.
So we'll be going over the CMAQ STBG and carbon reduction allocations. Also included is fiscal year 28 and 29, which was previous allocations that was directed to TMA. However, in front of you tonight is the FY30 allocations. We have about $3.3 million going to roadways, about $800,000 going to transit, just under $1 million going to active transportation, just over $200,000 for studies. These allocations are dictated by our methodology, which we have here. So roadways gets about 65% of the CMAQ carbon reduction fund, 15% transit, and 20% transportation. And then it's a slightly different because we break out studies as well. This methodology is somewhat new because in previous rounds, any old project that needed additional funds would just automatically get them. No competitive process. And so this last round had that if you had an existing project that needed more funding, you would actually have to reapply. And so we have receiving allocations to CMAQ and STBG, as well as the I-95 widening. We had 2 transit projects also coming back and requesting additional funds, receiving STBG and a little bit of carbon reduction funds. And then you have the studies, which were kind of unique because it's not a metric whether or not your previous project, but they are also coming in and requesting a small amount of additional money. We're all allocating these technically right now in FY30 because that's where the funding is. If a jurisdiction in the town requests to move money forwards and backwards, then we start moving it back and forth as they deem necessary to adjust to make it projects accessible and on schedule. The new projects added this year was we had the Mine Road in Green Springs. This actually received 3 fiscal years of funding because it's receiving the TMA set assigns. Route 288 and Little Road intersection received CMAQ funding. And then Spotsylvania had 2 transit services receive funding. And then finally, the projects that received CMAQ and carbon reduction funds for active transportation were in the City of Fredericksburg and VCR Trail, and both of these were for PE funds. So those are the new projects that were added. The methodology then recommends, because we actually had some unused funds, and the methodology recommends that that would have gone to a 3rd roadway project. The TAC actually made a recommendation, was seeking funds for identifying scale development and study needs. And so it requested to actually swap CMAQ and STBG money and be able to apply those in the basically swap at having 30, and then with funding swaps, try to move that forward for the next round of smart scale. These TAC had a divided vote on that. But this was their recommended option going forward. However, just before the TAC and everything was doing it, VDOT did allow us that additional funds were coming and be available. Not necessarily FY30, but actually there might have been, there are funds coming in through FY25 and 29. They weren't available for the TAC to discuss because it basically came in after the agenda and everything was coming out. We were confirming those. And so we're continuing to work on, we're going to actually go back to the TAC with a kind of a new rundown because the methodology says, you know, once a project's funded, receives a max amount, start working down the list. That's going to be kind of unique because we really have never had a situation where it's because it's small amounts of funds through FY 25 through FY 29. Normally we get it in 1 year, not kind of small amounts across 5 years, but we're going to come back and address that and go through the methodology to fund each item down the list. So that we're going to have to come back to the TAC and ask for a new option going forward. But at this point in time, we would like to actually move forward with at least these projects that are currently listed to put them out for public comment and go through that process while we work with the TAC and identify any additional projects where some might receive more money, some additional projects might actually slowly move onto the list.
Okay, I know I personally have some questions, but I'll start with Jason.
Thank you very much. So does that mean we are not deciding between option B and option C today?
Technically not. So we don't have to, we're just asking to move forward with public comment on option C right now. To make that available, whether or not we go with that option when we come back to the TAC in the next month's meeting, then that would probably be the time that we would definitely have to do option B or C, but if you have recommendations, I can. That direction.
Madam Chair, I'm personally in favor of option B because it is the stated methodology. I'm not in favor of changing process midstream. I think that lends itself to, it's a Pandora's box. And I'm very opposed to just changing methodologies like that, because it looks like we had an agreed upon methodology that the policy committee had approved. And then this option C looks like it broke that process from my understanding.
Okay, hang on. Let's get feedback from everybody, because this is the money that we have at our disposal, CMAQ and STBG. And this is always a very robust conversation, just to let you new people know. And it's a healthy conversation, and it
Winds
good.
people up every time.
Right, it really does. So, if we, under the public comment, went with the recommended C or B, doesn't matter. And then we bring it back to the policy committee because we didn't, let's say we advertise with C and the board comes back and wants to do B, do we have to go send it back out for public comment? Because if it's like a public hearing that we're all used to, our county attorney would say, oh, no, that wasn't a part of the public comment. You can't just all of a sudden shift gears.
So we faced
Yes.
this last year, and what you all instructed me to do last year is remove the dollar amounts from the version that we're going to get public comment on, and just give the full list of projects that we anticipate funding partially in the next cycle. And we ask for public comment on the projects, not on whether it gets 50,000 or 400,000 or whatever, right? So we gave the full list of projects out for public comment, got the public comment, and then we made those changes to the dollar values because we also had to make changes last year. There's always something that changes.
Well, and that
So
makes
we have
sense
to
not
do-
to put the dollar amounts in there.
If that's.
But what
okay,
about the
we're happy to do that again.
recommendations of the TAC and switching the STBG and CMAQ money around, which
So-
we all need to talk about?
Okay, so Connor, can you please pull up that extra thing that I asked you to pull up? So this is your methodology, which you voted, right? Page 24 of the CMAQ methodology allows language. You see there where it says new funding. Just read that paragraph.
Can you read it for us,
Yeah, I
John?
can't read.
Prior to additional new funding amounts becoming known or available, the TAC may identify an area of regional critical need in which the TAC recommends where future new funding could be distributed should additional funds become available. This shall be done before the close of the call for projects, often occurring in November. All funds will be applied to the existing projects or projects scored in the current call for projects round.
Okay, so what does that mean in layman's term to the new people that are sitting around this table?
So what
Let John answer. Thank
So with TAC, we're going to identify to shift money. It should have been done in November. They would have to identify and say, we needed the smart scale funding in November. However, we've always been somewhat flexible with TAC and the timing of some of those recommendations. So that was one of the means of let's have this at least discussed at the TAC level and let them make a discussion. But the methodology suggests that if new funding becomes available, you need to specify in November.
Okay? And that's what you're referring to,
Correct, Madam Chair. This,
Yes.
this is the methodology we voted on,
right?
and I feel like if we really go down a very dark.
Change our mind all the time.
Okay, Will,
So,
and then Crystal, if
Are you
you'd
finished?
like to
No,
say something, but
I just, the reason, for those of us who have been here long enough to remember when, there was a less harmonious policy committee. I'm concerned about opening up fresh wounds in that and just agreeing to the things that have been previously voted on. I worry that if we don't do that, we risk reopening those old rights.
okay. All right, Will,
it's a question following up on what Mr. Alice said a moment ago about how we do the public comment. So is my understanding is if we were ultimately to choose option B over option C, we'd actually be talking about a different list of projects because there'd be another project on the list, right?
So what we can tell you tonight is that it's even more messy than that.
Okay,
So
I love math.
if I can tell you that the news is actually very good news. But it's difficult for us we've got to be careful that we time these things and that we confirm all the numbers. John was sort of being conservative. The amount of additional funding which we know is available is substantial. Right? And it's because for some reason, who is it who decides how much we get? Is it OIP or VDOT or?
It's VDOT, but it
VDOT.
comes from
Okay.
federal code.
So the allocations normally are for the next year the next year, in this case FY30, because we work that many years in advance. What they did now, very recently, is that they actually allocated us additional money in FY25, 26, 27, 28. We've already allocated those to that money to projects long ago. Now they've given us additional money in each of those years. And when you add it up, it's not a small amount of money. So the TAC did not know that when they had that vote. What they knew was we funded 2 projects in every category and now there's a bit left over. What do we do with the bit left over? We would fund the next project on the list, which is what you're talking about. We now have significant additional funding. So it appears, and we're still confirming the detail, but it appears that we can fund the next 1.5 to 2 projects in the roadway list, which is something that some members are concerned about, and projects in the other categories, and probably enough money to also fund this particular need. And the stated need here started out with a Stafford representative at the TAC saying, it's getting harder to prepare small scale projects because the bar gets raised every cycle, right? Round 2, you only need this amount of documentation and prior work. And it grows every year. Now we're in round 6, we're going to go into round 7. Round 7 is going to ask us for even more detail. Someone has to pay to produce that detail. And VDOT gives us a certain amount of support to produce those documents. However, they have a limited amount of support they can give us. And the concern is, how are we going to prepare our projects that VDOT is not able to help us with next round, right? And so the Stafford representative made this comment. The mistake that was made, and frankly, there was a mistake. The mistake was that the vote should have been taken in November when it was first mentioned in passing. And no one took a vote. So the Stafford representative brought it back in February and again in March, saying, hey, we should do this. Then they took a vote in the last TAC meeting because there was we worked by consensus. Because there was no final consensus, they took a vote, and I was to tell you that. Subsequently, now there's a bunch of extra money, and we can probably do all of these things. But the mistake is not that it's not in the methodology. The mistake is they should have just voted on this in November so that we didn't have any controversy. That's why, and John wrote that text, right? That's why John wrote in that text, you should do it before. See the word before? The word in there that's problematic is the word before. And the reason we do it before is because it's before we know what projects you will have. before you get all wound up and excited about your project or upset that your project didn't get funding. Before all of that, we must allocate some money to a particular need. Now, my personal perspective, there is a need. Not now. In 2 years' time, we're going to have to submit the next round of small scale projects, and the bar is going to be raised higher than this round because it does every round. You feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. VDOT will give us some support, but it may not be, how can I put this diplomatically, sufficient. So I think there is a need. However, this should have been decided in November, and then there wouldn't have been any controversy because we would have known in advance what we're going to do. However, the need is going to happen before we get the next allocation of money. So there's not going to be money next year specifically to address that need if we follow the methodology, because the methodology now says we do it every 2 years, not every year. So then we get into another methodology issue of we can't allocate next year because we've agreed in writing before and we're not going to do it. So it's an issue of this should have been done in November, but there is actually a need, I think. However, you have to think about process and the methodology, and we don't like mucking it up because then people get upset and don't like the way things are done. What we do, we're publicly telling you these facts because we don't like you being in the dark corner wondering if there's a dog, right? We want you to have the facts. So those are the facts.
Okay, so how much new money do we have coming in?
I can't recall the exact amount, but it's
Just
over,
a
it's
rough
over
amount.
over $3 million.
Oh, okay,
It's over $3 million.
okay,
And that will fund a couple of extra, because we don't fund 100% of any project, right? We have limits. We fund up to a certain amount. It will fund.
It would be based on how much money was requested by the applicant. Once you hit that, we stop and move to the next project.
Or if we can't give more than 50% to one project because we spread the money around. There's
Right.
a whole lot of rules that are built into that thing, and we abide by those rules.
okay.
So-
Lori and then Drew.
So why can't we send this back to TAC
Okay.
with the new information that you have and let them look at it again?
We're absolutely going to do that.
I mean, that would be my preference
We absolutely,
on that.
we are absolutely going to do that, whatever you decide tonight. We're doing that anyway.
Well, I think it should just go back to them
But-
without us taking a vote here and let it go back to them, and then it can come back to us.
You're not taking a vote on the projects or the funding. The vote is merely to put something out for public comment.
Right,
That's
and
all.
are we required to do public comment on this?
So this was a topic of some debate last year, but what we settled on is because it's federal money, it's not state or local money, we should do public comment because it's federal money.
So it should not have to.
Well, I'm the VDOT to give me guidance, but it's my understanding that when you're spending federal money, we should have public comment.
So we can hold off public comment at this juncture, send it back to TAC, and then it can come back to us.
Be careful of the timeline.
Yeah, so that's my question is regarding,
So
we're at the end
Susan
of the
will
year.
tell us what is the date by which I have to give you.
June 3rd. I have to have it approved by that date.
Okay, so
If you don't, any project that is funded with that money has to stop.
So-
okay, so it would.
That's the dangerous part.
Okay, when's the next TAC meeting?
So the next
Wait,
TAC
do you have
meeting,
anything else that you'd like to add?
I mean, so what he's asking, he's just asking to put it out for public comment. So people can actually go out there and look at it and see, and they might have something to say. Then tax, he's gonna take it back to TAC, and TAC's gonna review it again, and then it's gonna come back to y'all. And what might change all is, what you're thinking about is what some of the comments you might get back from the public. And that might help you in decision making.
But
that you
that's
might need.
between April and May, Susan, right?
If you put
So we
the
put it
comment
out till May.
And then when it
We've
comes
got our
back,
public comment.
yes, and then y'all have a better idea of what people are thinking.
Yeah,
And then you'll get it in May to review and vote on then. If not, you can always table it and put it to June.
my June is my injury time because I like to work a month ahead of my absolute deadline, because if I don't and something goes wrong, like there's a big fight and we have to do it again, I only got 1 more month left.
how many times do you get public comment on these things? How many public comments do you get?
Not a lot, but we can prove if anybody in the federal government says, hey, but did you actually do public comment before spending federal dollars? I can say, We did. We
Okay,
did 30
so-
days. It's done. Here's the proof.
So what
what's
is the benefit of
What is
going
the
back to
harm
the
of just
TAC?
going back to TAC?
In not doing public comment.
No, no.
No, she's
just
saying go back to
We're going
TAC.
back to TAC anyway.
But
No, but
Very-
she wants to go back to the TAC now
Yes.
and have
First
them
week of May.
reconsider the first week of
Yes.
May, then bring it back to the May
Yes.
FAMPO meeting,
Yeah.
okay? And then put it out for public comment, then we'd be up against a deadline of voting in June. So John,
Can
no,
we count that there wasn't 30 days?
It's 30 days and there's not 30 days between the May meeting and the June meeting.
okay, well, there it is right there. We can't do that. Okay,
So,
Done special meetings in the past. I'll
You
bring
can
that up.
call a special meeting, but that messes up your calendar.
yeah, that's,
John had that.
okay, John.
Would it work if staff produce the list of projects that would be considered without any dollar funding attached for review?
We can add additional projects that have been scored, that have been requested by you all, that we can't yet say how much money they're going to get. We can add the projects without the dollar values and put out a longer list of a
Okay.
comment,
So
which then means you don't omit a project that the public might wish to comment on.
Okay, Will, or I'm sorry, it was
Yeah.
you and then Will.
Thank you. So I'm hearing, granted, I'm a half step behind or full step behind on this, but I'm hearing that public comment is not required. It sounds like a safety measure because of potential for VDOT federal funding, right? Is that correct?
It's federal funding that you're spending.
But it's not required.
Well, every other time you spend federal funding, it is required. So we're erring on the side of caution, saying this is again federal funding. We don't want to omit public comment.
But wouldn't we be getting public comment once we resolve? It goes back to the TAC and resolve this resolved.
Well, John's,
We can always set another meeting. I mean, I feel rushed on this. I just want to let you know. I do. Because I'm trying to assimilate previous actions and also represent my understanding and, our side of it. We're not trying to be difficult. We just really trying to, get there. And when I hear something like, oh, well, we don't have enough time, that doesn't sit with me.
it's.
Okay, so let's.
Yes, go ahead. That's it.
Go ahead, Will,
I think that what Mr. Hollis is proposing is a good, right, you put out the broadest list of possible projects that could end up with funding under whatever scenario we end up deciding about with how these extra funds are gonna be distributed. And then we're covered, right? The public has commented, right? Nobody can come back to us. It doesn't actually change our timing and our trajectory at all. Like, I guess, why can these things not happen on parallel tracks that we're getting public comment on as wide a range of projects as might conceivably get funded at the same time that we're getting TAC to give us their feedback on the new numbers of reality.
okay.
It just seems like efficient to do both.
Okay, so I have a question. Well, I think number one, if we're saying that we either need to have in our rules and regulations that we shall do public comments with anything that deals with federal regulations. I don't think that should be, well, if we do it, it covers us. We should know whether or not we need to do that or not. So I don't know what VDOT's opinion is on that. I would think that if we're supposed to do public comment for federal projects, that we have to do that. So I'd like to know if do we have an opinion from our outside counsel?
It's federal dollars.
It's federal dollars, and I mean, that's the reason we have the spring meeting every year. Because we have to have, at that point, a public hearing type situation. And we have to put all this information out beforehand to make sure that everybody is notified of this information. So it's the same situation here. We have to put this information out to the public to give everybody a chance to look at it, review it, and make any comments they would like to on it. And then then we have a public hearing the night y'all approve it. So if they feel that they need to come and make any more comments, they're allowed to come in here and make those comments at that time.
So I believe that is not optional, having public comment. It is a shall.
I would.
Okay, so I have a question going back to the sheet, the chart up there. Why is Stafford County only getting it looks like $900,000 for the Mine Spring project, the sidewalks? Can you go back to the projects, please? Okay, and then I want to talk about that slide too. Okay, so we've got this set aside for Mine Road and Green Spring, and I believe that is a sidewalk project, right? Okay, that's the only project that Stafford County has, and that one is STBG money, okay? Very happy about that. I know that's in Dr. Young's district, but we don't have one other project on there. Tell me why.
Stafford County requested, I think it was between 32 and $34 million in funding. Spotsylvania and Fredericksburg requested less than $8 million in funding. When you add in the cost benefit, because for example, the CMAC roadway, Route 1 in Coachman Circle, which would be actually working down the list, a project that we're going to consider, was the top rating up into the point where you start getting into the cost comparison, the cost benefit. We're asking for $9 million when another project is asking $1.3 million. And I mean, $1.3 million being available undercuts, you lost maybe 6 or 7 points right there. And then if you're not also providing leverage funding, then you lose another up to 10 points there. So depending on how the projects were submitted, based on their jurisdictions, was Spotsylvania came in with leverage funding and low-cost projects. Fredericksburg came in with low-cost projects. If they all requested like $32 million each, it would have been a completely different outcome, because Stafford was trying to outline its cost, and the cost floors were so low as a result, it lost points there, and then it lost without having leverage funding. So I think some of your other like Route 3 business challenge, that intersection improvement compared to the city's BCR trail, both are very competitive in a lot of areas. But I think the city requested 850,000, just requested the PE funding. I think staff requested like $5 million. I'm blanking the actual total. But at that point in time, it starts creating a point difference. So even when Stafford would have, say, a very strong project like the Route 1 in Coachman Circle, which nearly scored perfect across some of the transportation safety congestion metrics, once it got into the cost and asking for 9 million, like we even vetted with staff that, is this what you're submitting? Because we want to make sure that this wasn't like a typo. They were requesting the full amount in case extra funds came available.
Okay,
So you'll remember at a previous meeting when we showed the scores, I mentioned to you that one of the projects that was sad about, we followed the methodology, but it was a Stafford project which fell just below the next Spotsy project because of that cost benefit analysis.
okay.
It failed the cost benefit analysis, and therefore it didn't get the funding. However, John tells me that we're still looking at those numbers, but the additional funding that we have now got via VDOT for earlier years means that we're likely to fund 2 more road projects. The next one on the list is from Spotsylvania. The one after that on the list is the one Stafford, which I was sore about. And it looks like we'll be able to give both of them funding because we've now got this funding in earlier years that we weren't aware of.
And what project is it in Stafford? Do you know, John?
Route 1 in Coachman Circle, access management.
Okay, so it's that one.
And
Okay.
on another item, like there's 2 other Route 1 projects, and they almost had adjacent scopes, like they literally started and stopped, and if those projects were combined and asked for less money, you would probably receive a significant bump just because it doesn't like small little projects asking a lot of money. If you were to combine them and then ask just for PE right now,
right,
it would have scored much higher. And then
so it had to do with our submission. Okay, all right, that's okay. So and I have one other question. You could go down to the slide with the 455,000, please. Okay, right there. Okay, I need to understand this better as it relates to the public comment period.
Okay.
Who is going to have access? Which jurisdiction? to that $455,000. And that's if we switch the monies out, CMAC and STBG, correct?
Correct.
Going back to what Jason asked about. Okay,
So.
why would we do that?
Reset so that we can ensure that internet connectivity is happening.
Right, right.
F 2013, 525,000.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay,
Wait, if this.
Oh,
you're back.
That's
Sorry.
green, it's already.
Yes. Turn green.
okay. It is,
Hold on.
oh, I'll call the meeting back to order at, let's see, 8:02. All right. We're having our discussion. I think there's a lot of discussion about changing this methodology, and do we want to do that? That kind of goes against the MOU. Yeah. Ian,
You are, just before we broke up, you asked the question, what happens to that 400 and some odd $1,000?
correct.
So let's give you an answer.
All right.
If the TAC and the policy committee approve a set aside for smart scale preparation or studies, because we have not listed projects and received requests for specific projects, it's creating a category, allocating the funding to a specific project. So that means we have to then ask the TAC to have either a call for, or you, either a call for projects for the next round of smart scale planning, or you have to agree a formula to allocate it to projects, right? So this does not give it to a project, this parks it effectively. It says, we're gonna need money for smart scale preparation. We want to park some money for that purpose, and this parks it. And then you all, the TAC and you, have to deliberate about how to allocate it to future smart scale. There's no, it's not being given to anybody, it's being parked. If you agree to this. If you don't agree to this, we put it back in the pot and we allocate it to build roads and sidewalks and buy buses and whatever else the methodology tells us to do it.
Okay, Lori?
This may be a silly question, but let me just ask it. It appears that, no offense, I hope, I'm not gonna offend you, but it appears that Stafford didn't put in the projects that they possibly could have that would have scored to the level that would have more projects on your list. Is that a correct statement? Is there any way that we could table this and they could reassess and come back to the TAC with other projects so that they get a fair shake on their projects?
So, two answers to that. The first answer is you would have to, I guess, stop this process and have a completely new call for projects, which means we throw away all this work and start again. That's option one. Then Susan is gonna be in a bad mood and she's gonna say, I need a list of projects by June that's gonna have money allocated to it. Or alternatively, there's a nuclear option, which we take all the money, we just park it and we start again, right? You can do that. And then Susan will look at me funny, but we'll put a line item in there called regional projects and we'll stuff the money there. And it's not really great to do, but we've done it in the past. It's not what they want. What they want us to do is allocate money to projects so they can begin planning the implementation of those projects and construct them, because it takes maybe 7 years to get there.
Okay, I got you.
There's option two,
Okay,
and that is, John, shoot me down if I say anything now that isn't correct, right? So, because we know, because John presented the scores, actually John and Connor presented the scores to you of all the projects. We already know what other projects are in the system. There's no maybes. No, we've got them, we've got their scores, we know everything. The next roadway project on the list is a Spotsylvania project, which will get funding because of the new money that's been made available, the additional money. However, the following project on the roadway list is a big Stafford project, which John tells me, and we have got to run the final numbers and we have got to get the TAC to look through it to check that we've not made any mistakes. But the following project is a Stafford project, which did score well. It's the one where it failed because of the cost benefit analysis. But before you get to this cost benefit analysis, it's beating the Spotsylvania project until you get to the cost benefit analysis, and then it goes below the.
And which project is
Spotsylvania
that?
project.
Route one, Coachman.
Oh, that's the
It's the Route
coach.
One encouragement project. So
what's the
it
Spotsy
is,
project?
Route 1 and Massaponax.
Okay, so
So those two projects are the next two on the list, and because we've got additional funding, over $3 million of funding, those two are, in all, I mean, as far as our calculations are, they're gonna get funded to a degree. You know, we never 100% fund anything here because we don't have $50 million. So they are likely to be the ones that get the next funding anyway, and that will be a Stafford project. And I can say this publicly because it's not breaking the methodology. We've already published the scores. We've already showed you the list. There's no secrets that we need to worry about. It's on the record, right? It's public knowledge. The public knows what the scores are.
Broken down, so that's with CMAC. STVG is slightly different, because then you have Fredericksburg's Route 1 Access Management Program. I think it's Hanson, Route 1 in Hanson. That becomes one that's in the fifth, depending on what you do with this money.
So it could also get funding. So they are, but we would just follow the methodology, the next one on the list. We'd fund the next, so we don't need to park the whole process or do some funny thing which the public might object to, or there might be some problem, right? If we can just go down the list with the extra money, we can get to a Stafford project and probably another city project and
Okay.
another Spotsylvania project, right?
All right.
So that it doesn't require you to break the methodology. You stick with the methodology you've got, you stick with the scores you've got. If you want to rescore one of the Stafford projects, I would suggest that you rescore all the projects and you give all the localities a chance to change their projects. But then what will happen is your staff, who are gonna do
No,
a good job,
we can't do that.
they're gonna improve their projects so they can do better. So it becomes like a spread on.
All right,
okay, I still think we should send this back to the TAC.
all right. So let me go around. Supervisor Banuch.
Just a quick question. You said that cost $9 million. Does Stafford have the Coachman Circle Route 1?
The application, I don't know what I
Did $9 million.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't have that anywhere in our transportation funding that we're dedicating $9 million to Coachman and Route 1.
No, you're not.
So we can't pay for it anyway.
So what FAMPO does, if I can answer that, is that FAMPO asks you all to request projects from us.
Oh.
And when you send your request, you have to give us all the details, including how much, not what it costs, but how much you are applying for. So what it costs and what you apply for are not necessarily the same thing. If you say, here's our project and we need $5 million. We deal with the $5 million. We don't deal at FAMPO with what it's actually going to cost. It could cost one, it could cost $1 million, well, it could cost 10 million. We don't deal with the actual cost. We deal with what you apply for, which is what sometimes goes wrong, because what you apply for then affects your score.
So Crystal, I guess Coachman is a smart scale project.
It's an application.
And so this would be matching
Is that in your
funds.
district?
This would
It
be,
was, it's now, sorry, Supervisor Allen's district.
so this would be matching funds for a smart scale application, and the smart scale process might give you the balance, but we give you something.
Okay,
But
well,
we don't tell jurisdictions what to apply for. We just score what they send us. We stay out of what you all think you need.
Ian, when you were talking about the new couch cushion money, you said that there might be enough there to also, some in the other two categories, some transit and.
John is the one that's closest to those numbers because he's spent all
So,
the working
that
on
money-
money. We haven't shown them to the TAC yet, so we're telling you, we think this is possible, but we need to take that.
Okay. So you talk about the amounts and what projects are next on those lists? to
So
get
it depends on the applications, and this is something where I have to kind of filter what the application is actually asking for, because if a project asks for, let's just say $100,000, I fund $100,000, and then I go down, what's the next project up? And if that one's asking for 10 million, I don't give it 10 million, I give it up to 50% of that year's allocation, which is a really tricky thing once you're starting dealing with fiscal year 25 through 29. So it might be a lot of little money across, I mean, it adds up, but it gets allocated that. So if you have one project that asks for a small amount, another one that asks for a lot, but it can only use 50%, then you have another percentage, so you can even dip down to a third project. So in the instances of say, the active transportation projects using CMAQ money, like the route through the bridges, they're asking for $850,000 for the PE. The maximum amount we had was slightly over $300,000 each. So in that case, because it's stretched over 5 years, I add that. If it's transit projects, a few of them like staff or Spotsylvania's Kalahari didn't use up the full $217,000. And so with that money, I can start dipping down a little bit more. Maybe it might increase, say, the new vehicle allocation request by a few thousand. That's not as big. It's not as much. On the roadways, because it's a bigger pot, depending on how much each project is asking for and the limits per year, I can kind of cascade a lot of different funding amounts. So for example, your Route 1 and Hampton Drive, it's asking 410,000. So it scored very well in the cost benefit. It scored okay. It was within that ballpark of well scoring projects, but that's one of those things is, do I have enough money to drop down to that? And since it was only in the STBG category, that becomes a question of, do you consume money here and there? And we will have STBG for studies. That's a category which in theory Smart Scale could be applied for as well, but it's a lot smaller amount. So it's 10% of STBG, which is very, very small.
I have a question for VDOT. Our methodology is created to make sure that we have a fair, transparent process. And we follow the methodology to keep it a fair and transparent process. What happens once we've gone back to the TAC and allocated the additional funding and come back here with a final list? What happens if the policy committee agrees to change one allocation? Do they have the power to do that? The methodology written says we make a recommendation to the policy committee as the TAC. Right, the TAC recommends to you which projects to fund based on the methodology we have and the requests received. And the policy committee then makes a final decision about allocating the money. It's like, to me, if I look at it as a lawyer, there's a gray area as to whether the policy committee is allowed to change that list.
I think they are, because again, it's a recommendation from the TAC. The final decision comes to the policy committee, so if they want to change it, they can change it.
So even though the methodology says here are the scores and here's the allocation, they can take $50,000 and move it from this project to that project if they want to.
I think they can. It's not a popular decision because you then have to answer for it to the public or to anybody who questions on why didn't you follow your methodology. But I think that it is allowable.
My suggestion to you all, and you're free to tell me to take a hike. I mean that honestly, folks down that end of the table. We serve you, right? I was actually looking at the people to your right, but I'll focus on you if it makes you happy. It really is our job as staff to try and keep the process transparent and fair. We don't like doing things in the dark. We don't like doing things that we don't think are fair. My humble request is that you allow me to put out for public comment tomorrow the full list of projects, including those that are likely to get funded, but we haven't yet allocated any money to. So you get the full list of projects. Dear public, these are the projects we are considering funding in this round of CMAQ and STGB allocations. Please give us your comment on whether you support these projects or whatever you think about these projects, but we leave off the dollar values. It's the same as we did last year. We did that exact thing last year. And then we go back to the TAC with the additional funds and we use the methodology and allocate it to the projects per the methodology. And after the TAC is signed off on it, we bring it back to you for final deliberations next month. The only question that doesn't answer is whether or not you agree that there's a need for smart scale support and whether or not you think we must allocate that money. So I'm asking you two things.
But does that have to be in the public comment?
We can include it.
If we consider it a project, we should include it. But what we're actually doing is parking the money for a future need. We're not actually allocating it to a specific study. We're saying we're going to decide later what those studies are when we are in the smart scale process. But
Okay.
But the projects that we're actually going to allocate specific dollars to this year
would
We
be
must
in the, for the,
declare all
sure.
of those projects on the list and we must put them out to the public. So I'm essentially asking you two things. Can I put the project list out to the public without dollars? And what do you want me to do with the request for the smart scale needs? Are we ruling that it is wrong and we should stop it? Or are we ruling that we should put it in a allocated for future, for next round of smart scale things, and we decide later which projects get the money through an open, transparent process again? So
Okay,
those are the two questions.
got it. Drew and then Jason.
Are you suggesting then some nuanced change? And if so, shouldn't it go back to TAC for that?
Say again?
Are you suggesting then some kind of a change by what you just outlined? And if so, should it go back to the TAC because it's a change from?
So everything that
Mhm.
we're gonna do is going back to the TAC because we don't have the final lists. This is a draft list.
I mean, if you sent it both of those back to be for public comments, does that have any bearing? Is that just,
Both of which.
TAC had two different votes on this.
Mhm.
And it was very controversial from what I understand. So I don't know if there's gonna be any benefit of sending it back to the TAC, but that's my personal opinion.
but Madam Chair, to that point, I think that's where I've been trying to grasp, but it seems as though because there had been a controversial vote and then it was remassaged and approved, that creates the option B, option C conundrum, correct?
There's only been one vote. There was no massaging. There was a request, which a very vague request in November, which no formal decision was taken on. There was a firm request made in February, no decision was taken, except to discuss further. There was a formal request in March. They could not agree on which of the two options to proceed with. So they took a vote because it was a split vote. So we're reporting to you as the methodology requires me to report to you when there's a split vote. So that's what I did. So that's all that's happened.
And what was that vote?
John, it was 5 votes to 3, I think.
It's 5-3 or 5-4. It was very close.
5 votes to 3.
And option B is the recommended option based on methodology, but option C is still technically within the bounds of methodology. It's
just that the thing that was screwed up is that the decision for option C should have been taken in November. That's the mistake. And the question is whether you forgive that mistake or whether you a hard line and say, nope, it should have been done in November, therefore it must be done in November. And that's that's
Okay.
why you're here. That's why you are part of this board.
Okay,
Why
do you-
I don't-
do you have
Gonna
a
just a
question?
follow-up or a comment more than anything, seeing that there was some areas where had Stafford been able to put up some sort of more attractive project, is there a way we can kind of fix that with moving some or addressing some funds and helping them out in any way? Without it being based on, I'm just looking for a way to.
So
No.
we don't,
No, we,
game right.
And
Try not to say,
to help them.
I'm trying to help them.
I know. Hey,
I know, I think, Meg, I think that Stafford dropped the ball on this. Staff dropped the
didn't
ball.
do, I heard that from my staff today.
Trying to be nice, but.
Yeah.
I,
think we could sit
so-
here all night and beat this up, and I appreciate very much you trying to give us another bite at the apple, but I think we need to own this and just move forward. I think that,
it's unfortunate and I think our staff learned a lesson
yeah.
at the expense of
we believe.
transportation in the region, so for our county. Okay, Jason has something and then I'm gonna come back to you.
No, same thing, I think.
Okay, back to Ian.
I'm just telling you that based on the new money we know about, it's almost certain that the best performing Stafford project will get some funding this round. Once we go back to the TAC and show them the needs.
Right.
That's the best I could do.
So we won't get
Use-
left holding the bag.
That's the best I could do using the actual methodology.
And
All right,
does that
Lori.
include Massaphonics?
Yes, you will get money first. They scored after you, so they would get the remainder.
But, okay, but I still hold that I think kind of like the planning commission and the board of supervisors, right? It annoys me when the planning commission passes the buck over to the board of supervisors and then things change in between those two meetings. And I want them to be the ones that vet it first. And that's the way I feel about this thing with. So I
Well,
don't want to support this.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I think it depends on when you send a resolution down to the planning commission, do you give them the latitude to make certain decisions, or is it very specific? So,
Well, they're coming to us with, they're approving
well,
something.
if it's a land use issue.
Right, right.
Right. Marcy?
So one recommendation, I think we need to make the decision first on, are we gonna do the set aside? Because if not, then I think you need to add enough projects for that money to get fully spent
Allocated.
in the list that goes out.
We're gonna
So-
add some extra projects just to be safe.
So I need to ask my colleagues that are sitting here, Pam and Crystal,
That's Monica.
I mean, Monica,
Very easy to confuse.
yeah.
Amazon.
You know, this is changing the methodology of what we agreed to. And this is something that our staff wanted to do for, you know, set asides for basically going out and hiring engineers to help us with sketches and project descriptions and
Cost estimate.
cost estimates. Those are the biggies. So I'm asking you guys, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think we need the help. That's what I was hearing. Was it Marcy who said that earlier? That if we don't have that expertise in being able to quote it out accurately.
Okay, but then let me go back to the drawing board with, okay, Spotsylvania, how do you guys do your sketches and all your estimates? Are you guys using money out of your general fund to do that? Are you using transportation dollars? Do you know?
We're not telling you.
Oh, okay.
Staff just makes it happen and
Oh, okay. Your taxpayers pay for
That's
it. I
right.
get it.
that's right.
Okay, what about the city? Who's doing your work?
So we have general fund because we have our planning, it's community planning and building department. And they do a lot of the work. We do have some folks every now and then that come in, but for the large part, we do as much in-house as possible. And yeah, we have general fund dollars for it. Yeah.
They didn't hire a consultant for their current small scale project. Good or bad, but they
Right,
did.
listen, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, that's it, yeah. And,
I just hear Supervisor Allen's voice in my head, especially because that project is in her district now going, we don't fund transportation. And I know that, you know, others do and see different results and not that we could do better. I don't know.
But this isn't, but the 455,000 is really not about Coachman Circle project. That project's gonna.
Oh,
get
you're moving,
additional
okay.
Funding.
Moving.
I'm specifically asking about the
I didn't understand the
funds
question.
where we are going against the grain of what we agreed as a FAMPO policy committee, going back to what Jason brought up at the very beginning. So
I'm in agreement on that. Like, I don't see changing something for the sake of.
so that 455,000 will be reallocated to projects. Is that right, Ian?
Yes, if you do not want us to do this, we will put that money back in the pot. And the pot has got very specific rules about how you deal with that money. We will then allocate it to projects. So it might be buying a bus, it might be building a roadway, it might be building a sidewalk, it might be a bridge, it might be whatever's next
Down.
in line in
So
the
I
project list.
personally, I think for the good of this policy committee, we need to stick to what our methodology was. You
I agree.
can't change the game midstream. It doesn't matter what organization you're with. That just sends the wrong vibe and the wrong message to everybody else, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that, you know, we're losing money in Stafford. I'm not happy about that, but that's the way it goes.
I really appreciate that, Meg.
I mean,
really
I
do.
think
I mean,
I went through this committee, I've been a part of it when things were really, really rocky and it was not fun. And for the benefit of this organization, we had a deal. We had a deal. Why am I gonna go back on it? I don't think that's right.
I really appreciate that. That says a lot about you.
You will also get the $4,600 from.
Oh,
We no longer need the favor, thank you.
And I appreciate that you all are, you know, trying to help Stafford out. And like I said, we live and learn, our staffs live and learn from decisions that are made. It's just part of life, part of the work world. Okay, so, Chris,
I make a motion to do that.
Option B.
No, the one that Meg just said,
Which is option B.
Said it's option B.
whatever it is, let's just.
option
yeah.
B,
Second.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you made a motion, you had a second. Any other discussion?
Can I make-
Dr.
I
Rideout,
can give you the projects that we can add to it, so you know which projects we're gonna put out to play. So we have Route 1 in Coachman Circle, we have Route 1 at Massaponax. We have Fredericksburg Goes, heavy duty transit vehicle purchases. We do not have anything for active transportation because like those funds will be completely spent. We'll have a small amount for studies that is the 10% STVG. You'll have STVG roadways. You may have Fredericksburg Hanson Roads projects coming on board. Now that this is different. So
is there any money in there for Chatham, the
No.
bridge from the Chatham Bridge over to George Washington's boyhood home? The project that would have got done a while ago, the trail.
as a George Washington resident or resident through the methodology, no,
No, okay,
but
let's keep that one on your radar. It's an important-
yeah, trust me.
Minute again next.
We'll try. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you for that. Woo,
Does that mean I could put the list of projects out of the comments?
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I think we all voted on, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Just checking.
including the, does
The
that
extra
include?
projects,
Yes,
yes.
okay, I thought so.
Done.
Okay, woo, baby.
This was gonna be
All right,
full-
correspondence. B, I think we already talked about that. We're
Done.
done. Staff and agency reports, we already did the RTA, FAMPO River Crossing Parkway update.
John's literally got one slide or two slides for you.
Okay,
Real quick, since the previous meeting, we had our wonderful folks, at VDOT host our meeting. It was exciting. In that meeting, we had about 71 folks attend. We've received 55 written comments. Right now, the survey is live.
One slide, I thought that was it.
Yeah.
This is the last one.
We're currently accepting public comments, so please let everybody you can possibly think of know that the survey is up there. And right now, we're actually
I'm gonna click.
doing pretty well for the survey responses coming in. It's still open, so I won't say.
Yeah, I can. I'll go up.
Honestly, I don't even mind if you do this in an open session, it's just managing the number of days, I don't care. You can do
Oh,
it.
no.
just like you're
It's
supposed to.
personnel.
That's it.
okay. All right, board member and chair comments. I have none. Anybody here at the table have any comments? Okay, good job. Okay, we do have one closed session item. It will take literally about 30 seconds. But I'm gonna have Vice Chair Hayes read us into closed session, please.
Switch off the camera and the sound.
Press the button.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
beg your pardon. Read the resolution.
Whereas committee desires to adjourn into a closed session to discuss and consider the evaluation of performance of the FAMPO administrator. I move that FAMPO go into closed session pursuant to section 0.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purposes of discussing the performance evaluation of performance of a specific individual.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay,
Now.
Committee has convened a closed session on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas section 2.2-371B2 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the city that such closed session was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Planning Policy Committee hereby returns to open session and certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the G into closed session were heard, discussed, and considered in closed session.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, okay, let's see, I'm just gonna, state for the, well, first we gotta come out,
Vote.
okay, everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Must be roll call.
You need to.
Oh, roll call,
Connor, if you can just call the roll quickly as you
thank
can.
you,
Meg Bonke.
yes,
Lori Davis.
Yes.
Jason Graham.
Yes.
Janet Holmes.
Yes.
Will McIntosh.
Yes.
Drew Mullins.
Yes.
Chris Yakinos.
Yes.
Yes.
Crystal Village.
Yes.
Marcy Parker.
Yes.
Robert Schneider. Heck yeah. Deontay Davis. Pamela Young.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yeah.
all right, thank you, that, passes unanimously, and then we have one, item coming out of closed
Okay,
session.
so that the FAMPO
Administrator.
administrator was given the minimum increase in the system to staff her for PTOs allowed
Okay,
In hours.
in hours.
in hours, okay,
Got a motion?
Instead of the 48, it's
And-
gotta be the higher number.
It's
correct,
instead of 40, it's 48.
Sorry, sorry.
okay, and that's a motion.
Yes.
I have a second. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Oh, and I will not be at the next meeting. Ms. Hayes will be.